There's a village in the mountains in central Thailand. It's a place known for dairy farms and cement factories. Here, everyone's a cowboy. It's a sleepy town that somehow in its 500 years of history fell in love with the American Wild West. And just like in Texas or Oklahoma, there are husks of old saloons and cattle ranches. Here, the fascination with Americana runs deep. So deep that there's even a junkyard with acres of treasure salvaged from the Vietnam War. It's along a busy highway where most of the other villages have long since been abandoned, young people leaving a generation ago to the big city in search of a living and a chance at a better life. But here, there's one thing that still holds this small town together. This is the story of the home of the Curry Puff. I know not to talk when she's filming because she always yells at me for when she's filming for Instagram and then I'm in the background saying something stupid. She always tells me
It's fine, you can talk.
We did not set out to make a documentary. This was supposed to be a quick shoot and something fun for Daria, who's completely obsessed with curry puffs and has been asking for us to do something on the subject since we launched the channel. Daria's obsession started here, at a place called Kini Puffs in an area called Siloam near Bangkok's Chinatown. Here, curry puffs are an art form. Jean, the owner, only makes about 100 pieces per day, each one folded carefully by hand and then baked in her oven. Daria found this one morning and ever since makes it a point to come as often as she can for coffee and a few of Jean's incredible puff pastries. It was here, over a coffee and spinach and cheese puff, that Daria first read about the town of Saraburi, 2 hours to the north, a place that claims to be the birthplace of curry puffs. Curry puffs are an obsession in Asia. They're found everywhere, from Singapore to Myanmar, India to southern China. There's massive disagreement about where they actually came from, and no accepted origin story. So when Daria told us that there was a town that says they're the ones who actually invented the dish, we thought, that sounds like something for OTR. So we piled in our friend Adam's car and hit the road with no idea what we might find. Saraburi is 2 hours north of Bangkok, and it's an old outpost from the Ayutthaya Empire, although in all candor, it's seen better days. At one point, the town had a population of almost 100,000, but by now that number's been cut in half, swallowed up in the wave of migration to the capital that followed the construction of Highway 1. By now, even though it's 100 kilometers away from Bangkok, it felt like an extended part of the urban sprawl. The road to get here was lined with heavy machinery factories and industrial complexes, and the occasional patch of farmland, basically just like the outskirts of pretty much every major metropolis on Earth. But once we got into the town itself, right away, we could smell the cooking oil, and we knew we'd come to the right place. All right, so we've been in the town of Saraburi for like one block, and we've already seen 2 curry puff vendors. Oh, dude, look at this. There's 1, 2, 3 straight.
There's tons of shop there.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that okay. I know where we're gonna start.
Curry Puff Heaven.
Yeah. So what is a curry puff, and why is it so popular? At its core, it's a puff pastry stuffed with savory chicken curry, or fruits, or pretty much anything else, and deep fried, then sold for a few pennies at roadsides and market stalls across Southeast Asia. The key to making a curry puff is the distinctive method of stretching and rolling the dough, creating both a visually appealing pattern and a light and airy texture to the crust, contrasted to the dense filling stuffed inside. It's a popular snack across the continent, but I've never seen anything like this.
จากการทำกะหรี่ปั๊บเพราะว่ามันเป็นขนมประจำจังหวัดและมันมีชื่อเสียงของจังหวัดเราก็เลยทำขึ้นมาใครมาสระบุรีก็ต้องซื้อกะหรี่ปั๊บกลับบ้านไป
We spent an hour wandering through the curry puff stalls of downtown Saraburi and found an overwhelming volume of curry puffs. But much like the imperial history of the town, there wasn't much evidence beyond the legends and stories to show that this place had an important past. A couple of the vendors in the market did tell us, however, that there was one shop here that predated everything else, the oldest curry puff store still open in Saraburi. So we walked over and asked the owner if he'd tell us what he knew about the history of the curry puff.
ก็คือจริงๆแล้วกะหรี่ปั๊บไส้ดั้งเดิมของมันจะมีแค่4 ไส้มีไก่มีถั่วมีเผือกมีสับปะรดไก่นี่มันจะเป็นดั้งเดิมของไส้กะหรี่ปั๊บเลยแล้วก็ทำมาจริงๆแล้วคือที่เขาขายกันส่วนใหญ่เมื่อก่อนสมัยก่อนมันจะมีแค่4 ไส้แต่พอมาเริ่มยุคหลังๆนี่ลูกค้าถามไส้โน้นไส้นี้เขาก็เป็นความคิดของเจ้าของแต่ละร้านสรรหาไส้มาเพิ่มเติมจนทุกวันนี้มี10 ไส้ด้วยกันแล้วบางร้านก็มี10 ไส้บางร้านก็มี7 ไส้แล้วแต่ละร้านที่จะคิดสรรหาขึ้นมาครับก็ตอนนี้คือเมื่อก่อนขายนะเริ่มแรกทีนึงมันอยู่ที่มวกเหล็กสระบุรีแล้วพอเรามาเริ่มทำเป็นเจ้าแรกของสระบุรีเลยทีนี้ทำไปทำมาขายดีก็มีชื่อเสียงขึ้นมาจนกะหรี่ปั๊บนี่เป็นชื่อเสียงโด่งดังของเมืองสระบุรีแทนเลย
Okay, so now this was starting to get interesting. It turns out that because of the highway and the importance of the location of Saraburi, vendors like the people we met set up stalls here to sell to drivers on their way into Bangkok. They played up the identity of the city as the hometown of the curry puff.
One buck half 10 piece.
10 piece?
100 baht.
Okay. Your favorite 10 piece, okay.
Okay.
But while technically the story is that they came from Saraburi, it's actually Saraburi province, not Saraburi city, and specifically a village in the far east, almost to Isan, by the name of Muak Lek. And with a little bit of research, we found that the village itself has a slogan, the home of soft butter, good milk, and the birthplace of the curry puff. So now this wasn't just a video shoot, we were on an adventure. So I mentioned right off the top that there's massive disagreement about the roots of the curry puff. I mean, we're on the road driving to a town that claims to be the birthplace of the dish, but outside the borders here, nobody even considers that this might be a Thai invention. The idea that we're heading to a Thai village that might be the birthplace of a curry puff would be downright shocking to the rest of the world. But then the rest of the world can't come to any agreement about where it actually comes from, so why can't it be here? One of the really fun things about this channel is that it's been an excuse to do some deep dives into the history of some of our favorite stuff, to learn about the people and the various influences that led to modern-day classics. But there's usually a line from A to B to C that, with enough digging, is pretty easy to follow. And then there's the curry puff. There are full-on research papers establishing that curry puffs evolved from Indian samosas. But there are also pieces confidently proclaiming that this is an offshoot of the Portuguese empada, or the Spanish empanada, or the British Cornish pasty, or maybe it came from Ethiopia, or maybe Singapore. Nobody knows, forget about it. So who actually created the curry puff? And where did it come from when it started to spread? And since nobody outside Thailand seems to consider this a Thai dish, are we even on the right track? The short version is, I don't know. But to try to at least come in with an educated guess, we've narrowed down the possibilities to 4 countries or regions that at least fulfilled our basic criteria. They had to be a place with a provable impact on Southeast Asian cuisine, with some historical trade links to all the places that serve the dish prominently. And the country or region must be somewhere that the techniques and ingredients have some historical background that might predate the spread of the curry puff. That left us with 4 possibilities: China, India, Portugal, and here in Southeast Asia. China is the country with the strongest culinary influence in the region, famous for curry puffs. And there are Chinese dishes almost identical to what we have in Thailand. But this theory falls apart when you realize that most of the Chinese curry puffs actually seem to have arrived to the country from Singapore. Then there's India. I'll admit I always just kind of assumed that curry puffs were just a Southeast Asian take on samosas. After all, even the standard filling of a rich, savory curry tastes an awful lot like the potato and carrot version of the classic samosa. But again, this starts to unravel when you consider that samosas themselves are also popular in Southeast Asia, and often appear side by side with curry puffs as entirely different dishes. Like in Indonesia, where samosas are sold everywhere and called simply samosas. But curry puffs are also a popular snack in Indonesia, and there, they call them by the Portuguese name, pastels. And that brings us to our third potential theory, which is that Portuguese empadas mixed with Indian ingredients at the colony in Goa, and then spread across Southeast Asia. Just last week on this channel, we visited the oldest Portuguese settlement in Thailand, a place with a history dating back to the 16th century. In fact, in Bangkok's Kutijin enclave, we found one shop selling curry puffs as a Portuguese snack. The Portuguese had colonies and trading ports in Malaysia and Myanmar and even in Fujian province in China. And the oldest European settlement in Thailand was the Portuguese neighborhood in Ayutthaya, an empire that included Saraburi and the surrounding countryside. Which, if we need to establish a thesis as to how it might be conceivable for curry puffs to have actually originated here, that would be it. The Portuguese settled in Ayutthaya and brought with them a stuffed pastry called an empada, and then traders from Goa brought the tradition of stuffing the empada with curry. Somewhere along the line, the dish was picked up and adapted by a local Thai community in, apparently, a village called Muak Lek, which popularized the dish throughout Siam, and then it spread across Southeast Asia. Is this theory true? I mean, I have no idea, I'm completely guessing. But since nobody's ever authoritatively established the true history of the curry puff, and we're on our way to Muak Lek trying to put the pieces together, this was the best we've got. So for now, that's what we're gonna go on. All right, we're getting into Muak Lek, and you can see by the side of the road, look at that, there's a giant curry puff logo, 1, 2, 3. Adam, we've got to stop, look at that. That's an entire strip of curry puff vendors and a curry puff mall. This is the first thing that we see entering Muak Lek is that more?
ชื่อเกียรติศักดิ์ครับเจ้าของร้านน้องกุสุมาเกิดกะหรี่ปั๊บมาขายมา20กว่าปีแล้วครับเป็นกะหรี่ปั๊บที่ขึ้นชื่อของเมืองสระบุรีครับ
แล้วสระบุรีกะหรี่ปั๊บมีตั้งนานหรือยังครับ
มีมานานแล้วครับ
ประมาณกี่ปีแล้วครับ
มันนานกว่านั้นแต่ผมก็ไม่ทราบเพราะว่าผมเป็นคนกรุงเทพแล้วก็เพิ่งขึ้นเข้ามาอยู่ที่นี่แล้วมาจัดอาชีพนี้ครับผม
Just like in Saraburi, there was no history to be found here, and this is very much a place that sprung up out of the fame surrounding the main tourist attraction in this area, the curry puffs. And it was interesting to note for the second time now that to get to the big snack markets, we had to swing a U-turn. Everything, both in Saraburi and here, was on the side of the highway leading into Bangkok, not out of it. Adam told us that this made sense. Whenever people from the countryside would visit relatives in Bangkok, they'd have to stop to pick up a gift box of the famous curry puffs as a present. And for people from the city on holiday somewhere in the mountains or the old imperial towns, well, they'd want to grab some of these on their way back home. And Adam would know. He's the only one of us in the car with a Thai wife and an extended Thai family. and the trunk of his car was quickly filling up with boxes of curry puffs that he'd bought already for cousins and uncles and neighbors and people he hadn't even thought of yet, but he knew they'd be disappointed if he returned from highway number 2 without some of these. A few minutes past the market, we left the main road and made our way into the town of Muak Lek. Here, up in the mountains, even compared to the market we just left, the temperature was cool and comfortable, and the whole town was, well, it wasn't what we expected. Honestly, between the farms and the clean streets, the family-run restaurants, and the lazy and walkable downtown, you could drop this into my home county in central Virginia, and it would kind of fit. It was pretty clear that the tourist part of this town ended at the highway exit ramp. Here, it was just a place where about 5,000 people live, a funky little cowboy village surrounded by dairy farms. Especially after the bustle of Bangkok, this was a pretty easy place to start to like. The one thing we did not find right away was curry puffs. It's strange to realize that in the 21st century, there are still places where Google Maps and TripAdvisor aren't much of a resource. But it was almost cathartic to remember that there was a time when the only way to explore a place was just to start exploring. And since we had a very specific mission, we figured we'd start at the local food market.
วันกันทเสมานะคะเปิดร้านกะหรี่ปั๊บคุณจุ๋มค่ะของดังอำเภอมวกเหล็กเปิดมานานแล้ว20กว่าปีได้แล้วค่ะมันเป็นตำนานมานานแล้วนะเมื่อก่อนเราใช้ผงกะหรี่เนาะแล้วเราใช้ตัวพับเนี่ยเขาก็เรียกกันแบบเป็นเมื่อก่อนเขาจะเรียกว่าเคอรี่พับแล้วทีนี้มันก็เลยแบบเพี้ยนมาก็เป็นกะหรี่ปั๊บเพราะว่าเราใช้มือพับสูตรต้นตำรับก็คือจะเป็นไส้ไก่ต้นตำรับเลยไส้ไก่แล้วที่มันดังก็คือว่าเนื้อนุ่มนมดีกะหรี่ปั๊บดังของอำเภอมวกเหล็ก
สวัสดีค่ะร้านมาริสาใช่มีไก่ถั่วเผือกพิเศษคือไก่
ที่เกิดกายร้านนี้เปิดนานหรือยังครับ
20
ตลาดนี้เปิดตั้ง20 ปีแล้ว
20 กว่าปี
แล้วทำไมจะกะหรี่ปั๊บที่จังหวัดนี้มันดังนะครับ
มันเป็นดั้งเดิมไงใช่ไหมยาย
In the end, we spoke with almost every vendor from the market, but none of them could trace their own origin or their knowledge of the curry puff far beyond 20 years in the past. The best anyone could tell us was that they started making curry puffs when the highway opened, because that was when the hordes of tourists started arriving looking for the famous dish. And everything started to make sense. The street-side stalls in Saraburi, the market on the highway outside Muak Lek, and this place. Because for small farming towns, highways change everything. The Thai Highway No. 2 was first constructed in the mid-1950s, linking the industrial towns in the nation's center with the population centers in Isan. In 1997, the government embarked on a modernization effort, and the road was widened and expanded and turned into the expressway we saw today. One of my favorite books I read while living in China was from an author named Peter Hester, and it's called Country Driving. It basically tells the story of how much small-town life changed after the arrival of the highways. Invariably in villages where nothing had changed for countless generations. When the roads would come, the young people would leave, drawn by the appeal and opportunities of the big cities. The book was published just before I came to China for the first time, and I spent my first few years in the country getting as far away from the cities as I could, trying to soak up as many places and experiences as possible, knowing that there would be a time when the encroaching march of progress would reach even the farthest corners of the provinces. And that change would always come. Villages that felt like relics of a simpler time would, on revisit, feel like, in turn, barren wastelands with houses empty and unfortunate replicas of so many other small towns with cars replacing two-stroke engines and fast food chains taking the place of the old family-run restaurants. Every once in a while, a place might find itself with just the right set of circumstances that would simply redefine the village instead of decimating it. Maybe there'd be a famous waterfall somewhere up the mountain, and when the road would come, so would the tourists, and families would turn their homes into guest houses, and a hospitality business would begin to form. Maybe an investor might choose to open a factory or a university on a large piece of land along the new highway, and outsiders would arrive and land values would increase, and the local residents might find themselves in the middle of a brand new city. And every extreme once in a while, a small village might become famous just for being itself, for some local delicacy or piece of local culture that would bring tourism and prosperity in while keeping families intact and preserving that irreplaceable soul of the village itself.
We're in Muak Lek? We're in Muak Lek, about 120 kilometers north of Bangkok. And we thought we came out here to film a food video about curry puffs. But then today took a turn.
This is, well, I don't know what this is. It's a whole bunch of stuff salvaged from the last 100 years of warfare. And there's no reason why we stopped here, except somewhere deep down, I guess, none of us ever really grow up.
Drives, there's a key in the ignition.
อันนี้ก็เริ่มต้นจากความรัก
ใช่
ความรัก แล้วก็สตอรี่ของแต่ละชิ้นงานนะครับ เราก็เก็บตั้งแต่ตัว World War II มีทั้งรถ มีทั้งพาร์ทเครื่องบิน มีทั้งวัสดุอุปกรณ์ ยุทโธปกรณ์ต่างๆ
วันนี้ curry puffs ชิมได้
โอ้คุณจุ๋มนี่จะเป็นร้านดังของสระบุรี
By now, we were well into the afternoon, and while we'd had a pretty amazing road trip, we still had unfinished business. We were here to find the roots of the curry puff. So we took one last walk through downtown Muak Lek. And finally, we got the break we were looking for.
ชื่อบางออนนะคะ ร้านสกุลพรเคอรี่พับค่ะ ร้านเราทำกะหรี่ปั๊บตัวเล็กค่ะ แล้วก็ไส้ที่ลูกค้านิยมที่สุดก็คือไส้ไก่นะคะ แล้วเมื่อก่อนตอนแรกๆเขาจะใช้แฮนด์เมดทำมือ แล้วพอตอนหลังๆมาถึงแบบมันเป็นที่รู้จักของทั่วไปมันก็เลยกลายเป็นขนมประจำเมืองสระบุรีค่ะ ไม่แน่ใจค่ะแต่ว่าคนที่เริ่มที่ของประจำอำเภอมวกเหล็กคือเป็นครูค่ะ ชื่อครูต้อ
ชื่ออะไรนะ
ครูต้อค่ะ
Okay, I'm gonna try one right now first.
ไม่ noไม่
Finally, we had a name. And it turns out, the history of the Muak Lek curry puff had been right under our nose this entire time. The place still run by descendants of what locals considered the inventor of the curry puff was right along the highway, in between two other shops we'd visited a few hours earlier. So this was it, the end of the road. We'd finally find out if we could answer the question of who actually invented the curry puff.
สวัสดีค่ะดิฉันชื่อนางสายสมรน้อยบุงค้าค่ะ อยู่แผนกขายของฝากที่ร้านอาหารครูต้อนะคะกะหรี่ปั๊บครูต้อขึ้นชื่อของอำเภอมวกเหล็กสระบุรีค่ะ เป็นเจ้าแรกของมวกเหล็กค่ะทำให้ผู้คนแถวนี้มีอาชีพค่ะ ร้านที่นี่ก่อตั้งมา 40 กว่าปีแล้วค่ะครูต้อเป็นคนทำกะหรี่ปั๊บคนแรกของอำเภอมวกเหล็กเลยค่ะทำให้ผู้คนแถวนี้มีอาชีพค่ะอาชีพนี้เดิมทีครูต้อเขาทำโคนมเลี้ยงโคนมมาค่ะฟาร์มโคนมมวกเหล็กทีนี้ครูต้อก็เลยเป็นคนก่อตั้งทำกะหรี่ปั๊บก็คือเดิมจะเป็นเคอรี่พับค่ะทีนี้เรามาทำที่มวกเหล็กสระบุรีประเทศไทยก็เลยกลายเป็นกะหรี่ปั๊บค่ะเป็นต้นตำรับเนื้อนุ่มนมดีกะหรี่ปั๊บดังค่ะ
You know, it's funny, we came here today sort of thinking that, like, I want to get to the bottom of this story. I want to find out, you know, where did curry puffs come from? They came from, you know, originally from Portugal or from India or from, you know, England or whatever. And I thought, well, you know, there's this place that's so famous for being the quote, birthplace of curry puffs. If we go there, we'll be able to find answers. We did not find any answers And I'm completely fine with that, because what we did find, I thought, was incredibly cool. It was like, here's a town that fell in love with curry puffs. Tourists started coming because of their curry puffs. It boosted the local economy. Now they have a nice, vibrant downtown. The young people didn't leave to move to the big city, but they're all still there. And like, it just feels like curry puffs kind of, whether or not they're from there is not relevant to this story. It doesn't really matter at all, because it's not the story of curry puffs, it's the story of Muak Lek.
So maybe I didn't find the answers I came here for, but that doesn't mean the trip was a failure. Daria got to live out her dream of spending a day surrounded by the very best versions of her favorite snack. And Adam, well, just about everyone he's ever met would be getting a gift box from Thailand's famous home of the curry puff. And even if we didn't leave with some definitive proof to rewrite the history books of this beloved dish, and the debate will continue maybe forever about who actually created the curry puff, we still found something completely unexpected and incredibly gratifying. We found proof that even in the face of the endless march of progress, sometimes all it might take is something as small as this to keep a community together. In a neighborhood called Talad Noi, there's a place called Phu Curry Puff. It's the most popular stall for curry puffs in Bangkok. And until a few years ago, you couldn't even just show up and buy a box. You'd need to call ahead to place an order. Now they've scaled up. It's a family-run assembly line making one dish and making it as well as anyone.
ก็ที่ตลาดน้อยอ่ะก็จะมีพวกไส้ต่างๆมีไส้ไก่แหละตลาดน้อยจะมีแต่ที่เราที่เดียวแต่ที่อื่นอ่ะมันก็แตกต่างกันไปอ่ะรสชาติก็แล้วแต่คนปรุงอย่างเงี้ยแล้วแต่คนชอบพร้าวอ่ะมันจริงๆสมัยก่อนเนี่ยเราพ่อแม่บรรพบุรุษอ่ะเคยทำแบบของกินภายในบ้านอ่ะเราก็เลยเอามาเริ่มทำขึ้นมาแล้วก็เป็นที่นิยมของลูกค้าเหมือนกันเพราะที่อื่นยังไม่ค่อยมีคนทำเท่าไหร่มะพร้าว
ถ้าเกิดว่าคิดว่าประเทศไหนทำcurry puffอันดับที่หนึ่ง
First time for
ไม่รู้เลยนะอินเดียเปล่าไม่รู้นะ
อินเดียมันเป็นในนั้นถ้าฟอร์มอินเดียเป็นซามโมซา
I think it's come from maybe India, maybe Burma also they have, no?
เคอรี่พัฟเคอรี่พายก็
ไม่รู้แล้วก็
ของ
ไม่
พว
รู้
กเหล็กแหละมั้ง
Muak Lek. I know it long time ago when we passed by up country. I used to eat it. I know.
ก็ตอนนี้คือเมื่อก่อนขายนะเริ่มแรกทีนึงมันอยู่ที่มวกเหล็ก
แล้วของที่อื่นๆจังหวัดอื่นๆก็คือเขาจะตามเรามาค่ะว่าจะทำให้มันคือใช่ค่ะแต่ว่ารสชาติความที่เป็นเอกลักษณ์ของเนี่ยมันจะต้องมาที่นี่อะค่ะที่มวกเหล็กที่สระบุรี
จะได้ชื่อว่านมดีกะหรี่ดัง
โอเค
วังสระบุรี
เนื้อนุ่มนมดีกะหรี่ปั๊บดังของอำเภอมุกเหล็ก
เนื้อนุ่มนมดีกะหรี่พับดัง
ต้นตำรับเนื้อนุ่มนมดีกะหรี่ปั๊บดังค่ะ
เนื้อนุ่มนมดี
นมดี
กะหรี่ดัง
กะหรี่ดัง
ก็คือกะหรี่พับ
กะหรี่ดัง
Please subscribe to the channel and check the links below to follow us on Instagram and Facebook.